The 2024 presidential election was truly an unprecedented presidential election in modern times. You saw two of the oldest nominees on the ballot for the Republican and the Democrat Party. You saw a Democratic candidate clearly in decline that was covered up by the media, by the leaders of the Democrat Party. Now we see Joe Biden has stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. Clearly something that was covered up by the Democrats in the media for up to the last decade. Truly an unprecedented election. You saw Biden drop out. Basically had Kamala Harris begging Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and the party leaders for the nomination. They didn't want to give it to her. We know that Barack Obama wanted to go to an open primary at the convention. And so today we are going to be talking about how exactly Kamala Harris lost the 2024 election. There was a great piece that has come out recently from Catalist. Now, they are a Democrat firm. I'm just going to put this out there right off the bat. But this is truly a data-driven piece of work. It is a full autopsy of the 2024 presidential election. They take census data, proprietary polling, statistical modeling, really put it all together to give us a great dissection of the 2024 presidential election. Now, like we said, I'm going to say one more time, this is a Democrat-leaning firm here, but the findings here are really grounded in objective data. I really didn't see a partisan bias in this article right here, but I feel like this is a very, very credible source right here, very, very insightful for both sides of the aisle to take a look at. They focus particularly on the 2024 election and electoral trends since 2012. They also have sections devoted to party turnout, major party support. They follow deep dives into major demographic changes and changes at subcategory levels below that. And there are multiple times in here where they repeat data. It's told over and over again, just really to give that picture. But some of the key findings that they have here, turnout remained high, especially in battleground states, especially in Republican areas. The national turnout rate was roughly 64% of the eligible voter population, nearly matching the historic turns of the 2020 election. In 7 major battleground states, turnout was more than 70%, exceeding both the national turnout rate and the battleground state turnout rate for 2020, even though turnout was high overall. There were definitely differences between the groups that turned out. Turnout in Republican areas dropped less than it did in Democrat areas across the country, both in battleground and in non-battleground states, and turnout remained higher for white voters than it did voters of color. So obviously, now, battleground states, what are we talking about here? Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, North Carolina. Those are the battleground states that we have here. So really the biggest pieces that we got out of here, outside of that, the electorate was 3% less white than it was in 2012. Very, like we said, a very diverse election. We have not seen an election this diverse in decades. This would have been an even bigger landslide for Barack Obama if the electorate was 3% less white. Go back to 2008. Remember the giant landslide that Obama won in 2008. He wins Florida. He wins North Carolina. He wins Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Iowa. He wins Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. Just huge victories. And you're seeing him win California by 24, New York by 26. Like, these are huge election margins for a Democrat in 2008. We also saw that the youngest cohort of voters, the 18 to 29-year-olds, comprised roughly 36% of the overall turnout, which was up from 18% in 2012. Remember, 2008, 2012, Barack Obama's coalition was built on young voters. Young voters was a huge part of Barack Obama's coalition that he was able to advance, not only to win the White House, but then to stay in power in 2012. Now imagine that the turnout among young people was even higher. The overall turnout of young people was higher. Barack Obama would have had huge landslides, but somehow in 2024, Donald Trump wins the popular vote by 2 million votes. And then we also saw the oldest cohort of Americans, which made up about 39% of voters in 2024, which was down from 57% in 2012. And like we said, this demographic shift created an electorate that in 2012 would have been highly favorable to Barack Obama, who relied on a coalition of young voters, diverse voters. And some notes that they had in here about Barack Obama's 2012 campaign was that it was younger. It was the younger and more diverse electorate, which was so key to its victory across the state, or across the country, to be frank. But despite the electoral and demographic alignment with Barack Obama's 2012 coalition, Donald Trump won decisively in 2024. He secured all 7 swing states, 312 electoral votes, and a popular vote, which has been a rare achievement for Republican candidates. You go back to 2004. This was the last time a Republican won the popular vote. Before that, you have to go back all the way to 1988. There's been 3 Republicans since 1988 that have won the popular vote. George H.W. Bush, George Bush in his re-election campaign, and Donald Trump in his re-election campaign. And so the real question that we're going to really try and address, how did Donald Trump win, and why or how did Kamala Harris lose in an electorate that would, in this day and age, would appeal, or it would be appeared, I guess, tailored to a Democrat victory. And now the Catalist report highlights really 2 major demographic shifts that drove Donald Trump's win. There were 2 extremely big changes that we saw here. Number 1, men, especially men of color, moved significantly towards Donald Trump compared to 2020 when Joe Biden won. And young voters, particularly young people of color, also shifted to Donald Trump. Now, overall, men moved 6 percentage points towards Trump in 2024 compared to 2020. Latino men showed a dramatic 12-point shift towards Donald Trump, making them one of the most significant groups in this coalition. I mean, like Hispanic men, Hispanics in general. Now you look at approval ratings after the fact. When Donald Trump has roughly a, 47, 48, 49, 50% approval rating, you're seeing among Hispanics consistently that he has a 60, 61, 62, 63% approval rating among Hispanics. You want to look among black men. Black men shifted 7% towards Donald Trump. This is a huge erosion of Democrat support among a really traditional group that has leaned towards the Democrats. You also saw that white men moved 4 points more towards Donald Trump, with really a specific asterisk I would put that white men without a college degree, which many people see as a core constituency of Donald Trump's base, only shifted 3 points towards him, but white men overall shifted 4 points, without a college degree shifted 3 points more towards him. And this is really a big deal because you look at Latino men's shift, a 12-point shift, was 4 times larger than that of non-college educated white men, which really challenges this entire narrative that the Democrats have been trying to run on for years, that Donald Trump's base is primarily white working class people who have this white rage, I guess you could say. And now you're seeing that black men are shifting towards Trump by 7 points. Latino men have a 12-point shift. Men are moving towards Donald Trump by 6 points. It totally blows up the whole stereotype of Trump's coalition, how it's exclusively white men. They made significant gains among young men of color. And this is really, it's more, did Democrats lose this? Did Republicans win it? I think it's both. I think Democrats they dropped the ball. They really dropped the ball when it came to young men across the board. I think we all saw that going into the 2024 election. We saw that with low propensity voters, another category that Barack Obama won really handedly in 2008, 2012. Like if we're being very honest about this. These are groups that Barack Obama would have won, and how he won in 2008 and 2012. Now, if you're looking among young voters, and really this big shift among young voters is really what propelled Donald Trump to win the election. Yes, Kamala Harris lost these voters. But remember, there's always a third option in an election, even a fourth. A, you have third parties. B, you just have the couch. You're not going to vote. So yes, did Democrats lose a lot of this support? Absolutely. But did Republicans do everything they can to gain that support? 100%. You cannot discuss one without the other. You really can't. You see here, young people overall voted 6% more Republican. 6% more Republican in 2020, or excuse me, in 2024 than they did in 2020. In battleground states, it was less of a shift. It was only a 4% shift here. But among Latino men, let's look at Latino men. Latino men shifted roughly 12 points more Republican, which mirrored an overall trend among Latinos. You look at Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, 18 to 29-year-olds shifted 9 points more Republican. People that lived in urban settings also shifted 9% more Republican, which indicated seriously a broader trend among young, urban, diverse voters, people that really you would never have considered even a couple years ago to be a part of the Trump coalition. Because the young people are a cornerstone of Barack Obama's 2012-2008 victory, where he won over 60% of young voters. And this shift towards Donald Trump in 2024 represents a significant departure from historical demographic strengths and trends. You're seeing a shakeup, a true rejiggering of demographic support. You're seeing Latino men, younger men. Now, is this going to stick exactly where it's at? I don't think so. I think Republicans will continue to make gains with Latinos, with young men. Absolutely. But do I think that also partly it was exacerbated by how bad the terrible 4 years of Biden? Absolutely. Absolutely. Republicans still have a lot of work to do if they want to continue to win these groups moving forward. Now, the big one that you can look at is then women. In 2024, women still made up roughly the same composition as far as male or female. It's kind of funny. These are the people who believe in like 40 different genders, but yet they're only polling for 2 genders right here. Just interesting. I'll just leave that for you to listen to. But overall, women move 1 percentage point towards Donald Trump compared to 2020, which is a very marginal shift that didn't really bolster Donald Trump's campaign that much. But Latina women, they shifted 7 points more to Donald Trump. A notable change, huge change that you want to see it among the Latino community. You saw more 12 points with men. You saw more of a 7-point shift with women. Obviously, you have multiple different factions that you're having to deal with here. You're dealing with Latinos, but then you're dealing with on the gender spectrum on which way people are moving. Women that were Asian and Pacific Islander moved 4 points more towards Donald Trump. Black women showed no change from 2020 to 2024. They were really one of the few blocks that stayed really right in line with the Democrat Party. White women also showed relatively no change, indicating that Harris either failed to mobilize women as to counterbalance Donald Trump's gains among young men in general, Latinos. You really would need to see her really increasing the support. We know there was a gender divide, and we were told that it was getting wider and wider and wider. But from the voting patterns from 2020 to 2024 didn't really change. She needed that to counter all of the support Donald Trump was getting. She was not able to do that. And then the lack of movement among women, particularly black and white women, meant Harris could not offset some of these huge gains that Donald Trump was making with other groups. Shift among the Latina community. And Asian Pacific Islander women further highlighted that there was still erosion of women from Democratic support among the non-white voters. Now, Trump won 1 in 3 non-white voters in 2024. I'm going to say that again. Donald Trump won 1 in 3 non-white voters in 2024. That is a stunning figure. I'm going to say it over and over again, totally blows up this idea that Donald Trump only has support of white working class men and maybe rich men and white billionaires. He won 1 out of 3 non-white voters. This is something that usually goes for the Democrats by over 80%, and they're not even winning 60% of non-white voters. And this broad appeal among other groups that were non-white, particularly Latino men and women, as well as younger voters of color, was very critical for this victory. And it's very ironic that Trump's 2024 coalition really resembles Obama's 2012 coalition in the diversity and how youthful the vote was. You look at the same thing, go back to 2016. A lot of people resembled what Donald Trump did in 2016 to what Barack Obama did in 2008. The kind of hope and change. He came in with that change mentality. It was that same wave that Donald Trump rode in. And it was the same wave that Barack Obama won in 2012 that Donald Trump was able to use to win in 2024. And there's huge, huge shifts among political allegiances among these groups, particularly, like we said, young men and non-white voters. Now, for Republicans, it will be a challenge to maintain this diverse, younger coalition without Trump as really the juggernaut, the head of the party. And questions surround it whether another Republican can truly replicate this coalition in 2028, whether that's Vance, whether is that Rubio, is that DeSantis, who is it? But Trump's ability to attract non-white voters and younger voters suggests that there is a potential realignment in the Republican voter outreach, moving beyond the traditional white working class voters that you would typically assume that's where Republicans went to win elections. But the challenge for the Democrats is to win back voters who supported Barack Obama in 2012. They were Obama, Trump, Trump, Trump voters, or Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump voters. And Democrats have to address a lot of these key falls, or these downfalls that they had in the 24 election. They're just insane focus on gender, on race. Everything was so race related, equity. There was so much this whole DEI nonsense. They were so focused on that they didn't focus on the true issues that mattered to voters. And you can clearly see that in the actual demographic shifts here. You clearly can see the demographic shifts here. But like we said, Trump's base is far, far more diverse and much more popular than people ever assumed. And this election result highlights a potential realignment in American politics where traditional democratic loyalties, you think non-white voters, the youth, are no longer guaranteed. And this data is extremely fascinating for the implications for not only the midterms, but also future presidential elections and how the outreach will go moving forward for Democrats and Republicans. But if you want to dig in, like this is a probably a 30, 40-minute read right here. It's like there is some insane data that really is a true dissection of what happened in 2024. If you want, go to, I don't know what this extra stuff, you can't even see that on here, sorry. You go to catalyst.us/what happened 2024. You have all of it right here. I'll also link it down in the description right now. But that is going to wrap things up for today. This is how Kamala Harris lost. She lost with white women. She lost with young men. She lost with Latinos. She lost with people of color. She lost across the board. The Democrats did. And it's going to be truly fascinating to see what happens moving forward. But remember, there was only one Democrat in the entire party, Dean Phillips. Remember, Dean Phillips, the representative from Minnesota's 3rd Congressional District, was the only Democrat who was saying the quiet part out loud during the primaries. That Joe Biden is not mentally fit to serve another 4 years. Joe Biden is not physically fit to serve another 4 years. The Democrats should have trusted him. They should have listened to him. Now they got to live with it. They got to live with Donald Trump as the president for the next 4 years and Republicans controlling the legislature for at least the next 18 months. But that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts down below, and we will catch you next time.